Minister.
Thank you, Sir David, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Can I also at the outset congratulate the Honourable Member for Newport West for the manner in which he has opened this debate, underlining the reasons why we are debating this issue, the importance that in this Parliament we attach to petitions, those supported by the public when they reach a threshold, so that that actually provides voice for the public in this House. And I think that that has been an important addition to our processes. Also, he was right to underline that shared sense of history between the United Kingdom and the United States, and the relationship that we have enjoyed between us over a considerable period of time. I think today's debate has also, as we are debating issues of freedom of speech, underlined the value and importance that this House places on that, and our ability for all different views, all different perspectives, to be able to argue those points clearly and effectively through the impassioned debate that we have had this afternoon. Before I respond to a number of the points raised during this debate, there are a few things I want to say at the outset. Britain is a successful, multiracial, multi-faith, multi-ethnic country. Our strength derives from that diversity. Life in our country is based on fundamental values that have been shaped by our history. They are supported and shared by the overwhelming majority of the population. The rule of law, democracy and individual liberty, freedom of expression, the mutual respect, tolerance and understanding of different faiths and beliefs. These make the foundation of our successful pluralistic nation. They unite us and help our society to thrive. I am proud that our country has so many vibrant, diverse communities constituting people of many faiths. And I celebrate the contribution made by British Muslims in this country in every sphere and in every walk of life. From those who fought in the trenches in World War I and fought fascism in World War II, to the businessmen, doctors, nurses, teachers, members of our armed services and members of this House, some of whom have made powerful and impassioned speeches this afternoon. And they are proud to be both British and Muslim without any contradiction. Yes, the threat from terrorism, both at home and abroad, is serious and it is real. We have seen the damaging and corrosive effects of extremism in our communities. But suggesting that the solution is to ban Muslims who have done nothing wrong ignores the fact that extremism affects all communities and hatred can come from any part of society. It ignores that Muslims are themselves far too often the targets of extremism and hatred, and that around the world many Muslims are killed by terrorism more than any other group. It also gives succor to the false view that Muslims cannot live a purposeful and fulfilled life in the West. Such assertions are fundamentally wrong, and as a country we could not be clearer in saying that. If we are to defeat the threats we face, we need to work together. We need everyone to play a part in stopping the poisonous spread of extremism and helping to protect vulnerable people from being brought towards its twisted ideology. It is that approach this government is seeking to foster. Because we have seen the devastating impact radicalisation can have on individuals, families and communities, and because around the world more than 1.5 billion people of different nationalities, different outlooks and different political persuasions live peacefully practicing the Muslim faith. We must protect those who might be vulnerable to the poisonous and pernicious influence of radicalisation. Work with faith groups, community organisations and mosques across this country. This is a job for all of us, and we continue to work in partnership with communities of all faith backgrounds to challenge those who spread hatred and intolerance. We must work with the overwhelming majority of people of this country who abhor the twisted narrative that has seduced some people in our country, and challenge those who use a warped version of faith to undermine our fundamental values. Now, many of the contributions from honourable and right honourable members this evening have focused on Donald Trump's call for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. The Prime Minister has said his comments are divisive, unhelpful, and quite simply wrong. And I reiterate his view and profoundly disagree. And in Mr. Trump's comments about the UK and London in particular, again, he could not be further from the truth. We should all be proud of London's status as one of the world's most diverse and tolerant cities, and of the police's role in keeping the entire city safe, working in all communities to protect people from radicalisation. And I pay tribute to their tireless work. I will give way.
Mention the Prime Minister, before he sits down, would he commend the Prime Minister's article in the Times today, in which he says that the key to good race relations is full integration. And the Prime Minister points out there are still a worryingly large number of Muslim women who do not speak English and who are not in the jobs market, and he wants to improve the situation. Would he commend the Prime Minister?
Well, I agree with the policy that the Prime Minister has rightly identified today in seeking to ensure that language is there to ensure that we help migrants to better participate and integrate in everyday life. That is the building block behind the policy that the Prime Minister has rightly identified, and how equally he is being prepared, I think, to look at some of those uncomfortable facts on the fact that 22% of British Muslim women in 2011 spoke poor or no English, compared to only 9% of British Muslim men. I will give way in just one second. And therefore, it is how we can target that support at those communities in the greatest need. And that's precisely why Louise Casey has been engaged as part of her work to go about that. I give way to the Honourable Lady.
Does the Minister understand the point I was making earlier, that making this available for migrant people who don't speak English is different to saying that you must do it if you are a Muslim woman? And it shouldn't be aimed at a religion, it should be aimed at people who require the support.
Minister.
Well, Sir David, this is not a Muslim-only scheme, and the point that I rightly make is that it is targeted on those communities that are most impacted, most affected, but equally why I make the point about the 22% number that I think the Prime Minister has rightly highlighted in the context of his speech today. Now, to address the issue of exclusion, the Home Secretary has the power to exclude a national from outside of the European Economic Area and refuse them entry to the UK if the Secretary of State has personally directed that the person's exclusion from the UK is conducive to the public good. This power is derived from the royal prerogative and is exercised by the Home Secretary in person. Exclusion decisions are not taken lightly or in isolation. The Home Secretary makes every decision on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the information available and a wide range of policy and operational factors. These factors include views from across government, including from the Department for Communities and Local Government and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. The factors also include consideration of any interference with a person's human rights under the European Convention on Human Rights, such as their Article 10 right to respect for freedom of speech. Now, the Honourable Jennifer Holborn and St Pancras has also, I think, underlined some of those factors, some of those elements that are part of the policy that we adopt in considering matters of exclusion. But the Home Secretary uses her power to exclude foreign nationals to protect us from national security threats, to protect us from radicalisers and hate preachers, and to protect us from people who seek to undermine our core British values. The policy is not targeted at any particular community. It is targeted at all those who advocate hatred or violence, regardless of their origins or belief. The Home Secretary has prevented neo-Nazis, Islamist extremists, and anti-Muslim hate preachers from entering the UK. She has excluded more preachers of hate than any other Home Secretary before her. 103 since 2010. And she will continue to use the exclusion power against those who seek to do us harm. Now, the government has a long-standing policy of not routinely commenting on those who are being considered for exclusion for sound legal reasons, and I will maintain that position this evening. But what I can say is that the US remains our most important bilateral partner. It is in the UK's interests that we engage all presidential candidates, Democratic and Republican, even though we may disagree profoundly on important issues. Where there are clear differences of opinion, the most effective way to influence our American partners is through a frank and open exchange of view, in taking on those arguments. And today's robust debate has, I think, provided a platform to do just that. I can see the Honourable Lady would like to catch my eye.
And the clock.
I thank the Minister for letting me in again. I almost forgot what I was going to say. The Minister said that the Home Secretary has a policy position of not commenting on people that are being considered for the exclusion list. Does that mean that he can neither confirm nor deny that Donald Trump is being considered for that exclusion list?
Well, as I say, that we do not comment on individual matters, but I would say that what the Chancellor of the Exchequer has rightly underlined is saying that the best way to defeat nonsense like this is to engage in robust democratic debate and make it very clear that Donald Trump's views are not welcome. Now, we've also had comments in relation to Donald Trump's comments in respect of investment in Scotland. And clearly the appointment of Global Scots are, of course, a matter for the Scottish Government. The UK Government has never given Mr. Trump awards or appointments, honorary or otherwise. Mr. Trump has threatened to withhold investment in Scotland in response to the calls to ban him from the UK. Now, over the years, Mr. Trump has made a number of different statements about the scale of his investment in the UK and his willingness to maintain them. The UK is the #1 destination in Europe for inward investment, and the World Bank has ranked the UK as the 6th easiest place in the world to do business. So any organisation that makes promises about investment in the UK should live up to those promises. In conclusion, Sir David, we will not win the fight against extremism by demonising communities and tarring an entire religion because of the actions of a few. And we will not defeat the threats we face by acting in isolation. We will win the fight by working together, standing shoulder to shoulder with people of different faiths and different backgrounds, defending our values, and by showing that division, hatred and hostility have no place in our societies.
Mr. Paul Flynn.
I think the triumph of today is that we've had a debate that's been seen by many people outside, including the United States, and they've seen Parliament at its very best. We've had a diverse debate from a diverse Parliament. And I believe it reinforces the need for the Petitions Committee, a very young committee, an experimental committee that's going very slowly, building a role here. And this was a subject chosen not by any politicians, but by people who initiated and signed that view. I think we are all touched by the accounts by those of the Muslim faith about how devastating the threat from Donald Trump is. But I believe that all that's said today will enhance the standing of this Parliament and will reinforce our relationship with our great ally of the United States.
The question is that this House has considered e-petitions 114003 and 114907 relating to the exclusion of Donald Trump from the UK. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. Thank you very much.